We do know that the Netherlands have had a long history of close relations and bilateral ties with Indonesia. So can you explain and give us the latest update what the bilateral cooperation is like at this moment?
Yeah, well, I've been here now an ambassador to Indonesia for more than 3 years. And I can say the relation between Indonesia and the Netherlands is excellent. And maybe that's best reflected by the visit we had here more than 2 years ago by our king and queen, an official state visit. Not only the king and the queen, but also many ministers, more than 200 companies, many journalists, and it really went very well. And here in Indonesia, they met hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and it was a very big success. That is at the VIP level, so to say.
Right.
But if you look at our daily operational level as an embassy, take the Erasmus House, our cultural center, where there are so many exchanges between Indonesian artists and people working in the culture field.
Correct.
And Dutch people. Take education. There are literally thousands of Indonesians studying in the Netherlands at the moment. We have an average of 2,500 Indonesians going to the Netherlands.
Okay.
English education system is relatively cheap. And you have Indonesian restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, I heard it from many people.
I'm familiar with a few of them.
Indonesia di sana ada. Okay, jadi boleh.
That's right,
So
that's right.
well, anyway, that's education, of course, trade and investment, very strong. We are by far the biggest European investor here in Indonesia, by far.
Right.
And actually, we see potential for much more. So there you see a very, very intensive exchange between the Netherlands and Indonesia. I think we are, for Indonesia, the gateway to Europe.
Right.
Most Indonesian trade goes there. So yeah, quite intensive. And I must say, I've been here now 3 years, but I probably need many more years to use the potential which we see to its fullest extent.
It's always been a very strong relationship, isn't it? I mean, it was certainly, you mentioned gateway. It's odd because the first time I ever went to Europe, it was actually Amsterdam was the first city I ever visited. And I think a lot of Indonesians.
Garuda is still flying to Amsterdam.
Correct.
Yes.
And very affordable too.
Yeah, directly. Yes. But one of the things that has been coming up is sustainability, waste management, and we just had a package, a story before that the Dutch government has helped, the local Ambon government in terms of waste management. Could you elaborate a little bit more on this project? And is this the first of its kind in Indonesia, or whether you're planning to do more of that?
Waste, I think, for everyone in the world, including here in Indonesia, is a challenge. How do I get rid of my waste? If I live near to the Ciliwung River, I like to go, cleaning through the Cikini, that area, and small alleys, the gang, and I see people literally on Sunday morning, they drop their bag in the Ciliwung.
Right.
That's an easy way to get rid of your luggage, of your waste. But of course, that plastic bag will float to the sea, and it will create a problem there. Indonesia is one of the biggest polluters of plastic in the sea. That creates a health problem. Think about the plastic in fish.
Yep.
There's more plastic in the ocean than fish, is what some people say. And it also creates an economic problem for the fishermen, but also for the tourism sector, for instance. So waste is a challenge. In Indonesia, most of the waste is put in landslides. Well, we've got a lot of experience in the Netherlands. We have been facing the same challenges as Indonesia. In the Netherlands now, almost 80% of waste is being recycled. But that's the best solution. Recycle what's in the waste. Waste is worth money.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And there are quite a few companies here in Indonesia making money of waste, especially plastic, right?
Yes.
We all know the bottles, the plastic.
Yes.
They are worth money, everyone knows that. But there are also many other issues which you can find in waste, which are literally worth money. So recycling, reuse, of course, is the best way to treat waste, or burn it, and then not, on the courtyard.
Yeah.
But in professional incineration facilities.
way.
But that's expensive. Sometimes you can get energy from it. So for waste to energy. I think there are ambitious plans as well here in Indonesia to do that. Now, as a government, we have offered the Indonesian government in different locations, including Ambon, to see how we can share expertise, how we can share our experiences. It's a hard way. Waste is not an easy thing to tackle. And we are very, very much interested in also, especially at the local level, see how we can help Indonesian local governments. For that, we have to talk to KLHK, to the Ministry of Environment, get the permits, go through the red tape, so it's a long road. Sure. In the end, yes, I think we can be very helpful in the field of waste management.
Well, glad that is on the agenda, because especially the coastal cities, those are the ones that are suffering the most. Because, I mean, we're here in the main city, people still do litter, but it does end up somehow in the water as well, despite it happening in a major city.
That's the main concern.
Right. So away from the coastal cities, the Dutch government has, you talked about investment, the biggest European investor in Indonesia. So coal development is also one of the investments. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, coal very much is in the news, of course, because of the energy crisis, the worldwide energy crisis, but maybe I could also say the European energy crisis. In the Netherlands, we actually have decided last year to get rid of our coal-fired power plants. Coal-fired power plants are the biggest polluters. So we want to get rid of them. And instead, try to develop renewable energy. So get away from fossil fuel and invest in renewable energy. But because of the political crisis and the invasion by Russia of Ukraine, this whole energy stability has disappeared. So coal, gas and oil have been very expensive now, have become expensive. We decided to close down our coal-fired power plants. Only 4 are still remaining, and only 4 of them are, these 4 are still working at only 35% of their capacity. Okay. But now, because of the crisis and our immediate need to get alternatives for gas and oil, as a government, we have decided to lift the cap on the use of our coal-fired power plants, so they can temporarily
supplement what's missing.
Use more coal. That's maybe what you mean. So yes, we are looking for coal. That coal might come from Indonesia or other coal-providing countries, but it is a temporary measure. And in principle, I think on the long term, you will see that most countries in Europe, including the Netherlands, will get away from coal. Coal is outdated. These are outdated assets.
Right.
Try to invest in your renewable assets, because again that makes money.
Right, that's true.
It makes money. I have on the roof of my house in The Hague. We've got a house in The Hague and near the sea. I've got solar panels.
Oh wow, okay.
I sell that energy to my electricity company.
Do you?
Oh.
Yeah.
So you have enough to use for yourself?
If I make some coffee with the electric heater, I
public...
use my own energy, right?
Yeah.
But the surplus, what I don't use on a sunny day, goes to the grid.
Okay.
And I sell that to my energy company.
Oh, so
I did not know there was that reverse.
Initiative.
So yeah, exactly. And if I need more than what I can get from my roof,
right, then you can
I buy it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's up and down, right? Some people even use the electric car. In the Netherlands, many people have electric vehicles. Sure. They use the battery of that electric car to absorb the surplus of electricity, which comes from their roof.
Yeah.
And in the night, they
withdraw the
suck it from the car into their whatever.
Oh, that is brilliant.
Oh.
I didn't know this was all like a circular system that you can have.
So we're all little entrepreneurs now in the Netherlands, using energy as a source of income.
Yeah.
So in a way, people sometimes are afraid of renewable energy and the energy transition, and it's expensive. Yes, it is an investment. I paid for my solar panels.
Sure.
At the same time,
You're getting money back.
I'm getting money back.
You're
On the
earning.
long term,
It'll cover.
much cheaper than the regular price for electricity.
Yes, because you will always have available for yourself as well. You can be independent by it.
Yeah.
Hope to have
Very
infrastructure like that here
Yeah.
sooner than later.
Of course, and it's easy. And for solar panels were very expensive in the past.
Yeah.
But now solar panels, depending on your government regulation, for instance, taxes, import duties, and all that, generally are pretty cheap.
Right.
So it's affordable.
And we definitely have an excess of sunlight here in Indonesia.
Oh, yes. All year long. you know. But you've just also mentioned before in the beginning that Indonesia and the Netherlands have such a great friendship, and the Netherlands collaborating in development, in culture and education. You've also mentioned, as mentioned before, waste management, sustainability, and how, as in regards to our relationship, friendship-wise, how does the Netherlands perceive Indonesia's role in the international issues and the way we contribute into issues such as world peace and economic crisis?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Indonesia is a big country. It's a big country. It's the fourth most populous country in the world. Now, I think a proud G20 president. Next year, they'll be the president of ASEAN. It's also a big country in terms of, for instance, some mineral resources like nickel. Indonesia is a very important producer of nickel. So in many respects, Indonesia is a world player. And Indonesia is one of the biggest democracies in the world. Right. I think that's an asset, I think, which not everyone realizes, but it's one of the biggest democracies, a young democracy. So with, still trying to find a balance there. But it is a very influential player. Actually, I wished Indonesia was even a bit more vocal in that role, because it's such a important. It could give so much contribution to the debate in the world. Yes. But in general, we think Indonesia is an important player here in the region, in Southeast Asia, in the Pacific. It's one of the major players. If you look at East Asia, Japan, China, Indonesia, India. So we, as a government, we very much would like also to support Indonesia in maintaining that independent and neutral role, playing a role also as a major democracy in the world.
Right. So speaking of collaborations and cooperations, how about the Netherlands and ASEAN? We mentioned ASEAN at the top of our discussion here. What's the cooperation or plans looking ahead?
Yeah. For us, ASEAN is becoming more and more important. The whole Indo-Pacific region, from a European perspective, has become dramatically more important than, say, 10 years ago.
Right.
And ASEAN plays a significant role in that. So as a government, we have decided to step up our efforts in working together with ASEAN. We just recently, 2, 3, 4 months ago, signed our Treaty of Amity and Cooperation with ASEAN. We're very proud of that. But we want more. We want to invest in ASEAN. I'm getting more people at the embassy, more knowledge and intelligence on how to work with ASEAN. Okay. We want to offer ASEAN typical Dutch expertise, such as on maritime law, the law of the sea, something which we have been good at as in the Netherlands for ages, but also connectivity, water management. We want to also work with ASEAN as a EU country. I mean, the EU as a whole, as a group, also works with ASEAN as a group. A very nice example was a recent treaty or agreement signed between the two regions on aviation. It's quite special. I think it was just a couple of days ago. ASEAN and the European Union together signed an agreement on aviation. So on, for instance, how many times can you have connections to countries in those two regions?
Yeah.
Right.
It's the first time ever, I think, that two blocks, two groups of countries together decide on such an agreement. Yeah. So yes, in general, ASEAN is important for us, and it will become more and more important. And we really want to show to ASEAN, and particularly, of course, to the Indonesian government, that yes, we believe in ASEAN. ASEAN has a role to play within the region, also within specific conflicts which are here in the region, but also in terms of economic integration and prosperity.
Right.
Well, speaking of ASEAN, and you also mentioned before Indonesia being holding the presidency of ASEAN next year, and knowing our track record, having such a great friendship, do you think that is going to help, negotiate into new projects, perhaps that you've just mentioned before, in terms of collaborative, potential to be achieved next year?
You mean Indonesia being the president of ASEAN? I think always if you're a president, it has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that you have more power, you can make your own agenda. You are the one who decides what will be on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
The disadvantage as a president, you're normally the one who should others, you give the others the opportunity to speak, so to say. You can't be always the one who is speaking.
Of course.
So I think here Indonesia has a major opportunity to try to bring back stability and peace in the region. I'm specifically talking about Myanmar, which is a very challenging issue, and Indonesia cannot do that alone. But it can use its weight and its diplomatic weight and experience to try to bring the region on in one how should I say on one perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Having said that, I think we also should. I'm a diplomat myself. A diplomat. We should be modest in what can be achieved. We have the same experience in Europe at this moment with this very horrible war, which doesn't make sense, where we don't see a political purpose except of now Russia bombing and destroying Ukraine because they simply cannot win the war on the ground. So if you have to deal as a diplomat with those people, what can you do? So we need to be modest and maybe have limited expectations. At the same time, if there's a window of opportunity for changes for the better in the region, it will be next year.
Okay, that's a good point. One step at a time and always moving forward. One final thing. So G20, looking ahead, coming up very soon, very exciting time. The Netherlands is invited, obviously, as well. What preparations have been made by the Netherlands before the G20?
G20 is very exciting. We were very grateful to the Indonesian government being invited as a permanent invitee, like we have been over the last 6 years and next year as well in India. And it gives you the opportunity to discuss the major issues in the world. It's not only about the summit. Many people think, oh, G20 is the big summit in November.
Right.
Will Putin be there? Will Biden be there? That's one thing. But there are also other smaller summits prior to the main summit on specific sectors. So there were summits on education, culture, on agriculture, on trade, you name it, already quite a few. In the Dutch case, we have seen, well, I must say, half of the members of the Dutch cabinet have been visiting Indonesia already over the last couple of months. We have seen many ministers and high-level delegations, which was, of course, very nice for us as an embassy, but more important, good for the relation, because these people, they stayed here in Indonesia for a couple of days with a full week Minister of Culture visit. So it's not only about G20, but she also visited many things here in Jakarta. Yeah. We had the U20, the Urban 20.
Yes.
Our mayor, Abu Talib, from Rotterdam, who has been here already five times.
Really?
I think. He speaks Indonesian fluently. he has been here now as well, and he stayed here for almost a week. So, you know, making ties with, of course, the government of Jakarta, but also all the people within that government. So the significance of G20 is not only the summit itself, but also all the preceding events. And actually, we're proud, we're happy that we can be part of that group. The Netherlands is one of the 20 biggest countries in the world, but we're also the fourth most innovative country. We are the third biggest investor. I think we're the second biggest exporter of agricultural goods in the world. So in terms of meeting other major countries and being able to discuss major issues in the world, the challenges we are facing, it's very nice that we can be part of that group. We are very much looking forward also to the next year's presidency in India.
All right, certainly a very important milestone event that we are all looking forward to.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time and for coming by today.
Yeah, and thanks so very much for having me here.
Yes.
And well, congratulations with your wonderful program.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.